debt. I'm getting this question a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Glenn Carlson. This is another in our reinvention series. For those of you that don't have context, I started my business and the Key Person of Influence program and the best-selling book about 10 years ago in the middle of the GFC in the UK. Since then, we've helped thousands of businesses make the most of the times that we're in. And of course, aren't we in some interesting times now? So when it comes to debt, we have some experience with this ourselves. My first experience with debt in a business context was, took out a loan, 150 grand. I spent it on payroll, I spent it on ads, I spent it on activity and other stuff. And all of a sudden I spent it all, and when I came and kind of tried to work out what I had as a result, I couldn't point to anything in particular. It kind of felt like sand slipping between my fingers. And so I am a big believer in debt. I think debt is an incredible way to be able to grow your business quickly. However, where people make a huge mistake is that they don't understand the difference between assets and activity. Now, what I spent my debt on was activity, doing stuff. And activity is like that sand through the fingers. So when I'd spent all the money, I didn't have a lot to show for it. I might have made some sales or what have you, but that is a very inefficient way to approach debt. They talk about good debt and bad debt. We think of good debt is, we buy a house, that's good debt because the return I'm going to get on the house outweighs the cost of the money, the interest, if you will. The reason that works is because the house is the asset. Bad debt is when you're spending it on activity, when you're spending it on going trips and holidays and things of this nature, that when they're gone, you're not left with anything. The issue here is most people don't understand what a real business asset is and how to go about developing it. Now, I'm not talking about like plant machinery and things of that nature that you learnt about at uni. However, those definitely are assets. However, in small business, most people are focused on activity. They've got a big to-do list, but they don't have enough of a to-build list. So let me explain what an asset is really quickly, because that might help you prioritize whether or not you should be taking on debt. And at the moment, in the middle of this crisis, before I even talk about this, let me just shift gears a little bit. There are three types of businesses in any crisis. There's businesses that are just not going to survive. They were just not designed to be able to handle a crisis like this. The second is those that will kind of go into survival mode. They'll hunker down, they'll wait and see, and they might just squeak through if they do everything right. The third are those that are well positioned to make the most of this, help serve others in meaningful ways, and if they focus on building the right assets while focusing on doing the right activity, they'll end up taking some serious market share and be really well positioned when the market starts to rally on the other side of this. So what is so if you don't know which of those categories you fit in, don't take on debt. If you have no idea how to navigate this, don't take on debt. However, if you've got a pretty good line of sight, if this experience has given you focus, if it's given you clarity and you can see, or you're fairly confident that you can see a way through this, banks are providing all sorts of flexibility, a reduction in the barriers to get access to debt. I highly recommend it if you're going to focus on building assets. So what is an asset? An asset is anything that makes activity cheaper, faster, or more effective. Let me give you an example from a HR point of view. Let's just say you'd started a business and you were going to hire someone for the very first time. If you had no assets, you'd have to sit down with them, you'd have to talk to them, you have to talk to a lot of people. That would get really inefficient. Once you hired someone, you've got to sit next to them and train them on everything. That's really inefficient. By the time this person is skilled up, maybe you've invested 50 hours. That's a huge amount of activity. And of course, your time and other people's time is the most expensive thing we have, because time is the one thing we can't get back, right? So what are some assets that would cause that activity, the outcome of having someone hired and trained up, what would make that more effective? What are the assets? Well, a position description would be an asset. That is something that once it's been built, like a house, you can keep it in the filing cabinet, and if you need to let that person go or you need to hire another person, you can bring it out and it shortcuts that process. Another example of an asset would be a 30, 60 or 90-day onboarding plan where you might sit down and pre-record a whole bunch of the stuff they need to understand. Now, while you still need to do that the first time, you do not need to do it the second, third or fourth time because you now have the asset that makes the activity more effective. There's no way we could have built our business internationally without the asset of the thought leadership books that we've created, my podcast, the Dent podcast. People watch about 2,000 to 3,000 hours of my video content every single week. I do it once and it shows up on all the different platforms, and as a result, people are able to get more insight into how to position themselves in their industry, how to make the most of these times, and it doesn't take me any more additional time. So what I mean, any stress, any frustrations or any bottlenecks that you're experiencing in your business can be traced back to an asset deficiency, because if you're trying to build a business on activity, that's going to be hugely inefficient. There are too many variables, there are too many inconsistencies. Activity comes from people. People have bad days, they have to leave, all that kind of stuff happens, whereas assets, consistent, stable, reliable. If a business owner has built a business on too much activity and they leave and go away for holiday for 3 months, they come back, their business is gone. It doesn't work like that with a house, for example. You leave your house, you come back in 3 months after a holiday, it's probably gone up in value because it's not activity-based, it's asset-based. The problem with small business is it seems intangible. There's all sorts of to-dos and problems and issues and challenges and meetings, and it's like this intangible kind of mix of stuff that needs to happen. My job is to help our audience and our clients move from an activity-based business to an asset-driven enterprise. And so, if you feel like you've got a bead on how to navigate these times, the idea is, how do you take on debt to be able to invest in the right assets? Because if you're developing assets in your business, then the question is, well, do you feel like you're going to get a greater yield off whatever maybe you put money into producing a book or a digital scorecard or a video series or whatever it might be? Do you feel like you can get a greater return on that than it costs you to access the debt? And if the answer is yes, well, then it makes sense to put as much focus on building those assets now as possible. Think about it. We're in an economic winter without question, and it's possibly going to get worse before it gets better. We plant seeds in spring, we grow in summer, we harvest in autumn, but what do we do in winter? We sharpen the axe, we build a better plow, we improve our assets. Now it's winter time. Money is cheap. It's freely available. There's a lot of flexibility around repayments. If you have any kind of confidence whatsoever that you're going to come out on the other side on this on top or even better than you were when you started, which is the majority of the people that we're working with, because they get this, they've already been positioning themselves as an asset-driven enterprise, then go in strong on developing assets. Don't be irresponsible, but don't let a lack of cash stop you from being able to make the most of this opportunity. And I'm not saying to profiteer, I'm saying to help, right? Because if there's people in this market that want to pay you money, it's because they need your help. It's because they need your support. So there's never been a better time to be able to position yourself as that key person of influence, as that signal from the noise. There's never been a better time to be able to take on debt. Just make sure you're using it to develop assets, not activity. If you want to go deeper into this, I've been running a regular series of workshops, not just around this idea of becoming that key person of influence, becoming that signal from the noise, but how to build your business ecosystem from an asset perspective, how to go through the reset process and the reinvention process. Whether you feel like your business is out of business, whether you feel like currently, from what you can see, you could struggle through, or whether you are drowning in opportunity and you want to work out how to optimize for that so you don't just have a spike in activity and then a drop. The idea is any spike in activity, because you've got inbound leads coming in, you want to make sure you're building the assets along the way, so when you get to the other side of this, you're incredibly well positioned for what I believe is going to be the greatest economic boom ever. We've got millennials, we've got baby boomers, we've got technology, we've got this perfect storm of value creating elements coming together. This COVID-19 thing is going to be really challenging. I think about 30% of small businesses are definitely going to be out of business, but what that means for everybody that's left is just really exciting times. So my name's Glenn Carlson. If you'd like more, check out kpiworkshop.com. I go deeper into a lot of all this stuff. I'm running lives and interactives. You can ask questions. We can get into your particular situation. But if you feel like that there is opportunity amidst the chaos, love to see how we can help. I hope this has been useful. All you got to do is be brave, have fun. Let's go make a dent in the universe.